Item 10D, this is the item that we've all come here for. Receive a quarterly financial report as of March 31st, 2017 for the 2016-17 operating and capital budget and adopt resolution approving amendment of the 2016-17 operating and capital budget. Mr. O'Leary, how are you? Oh, yeah, thank you.
Are the numbers different?
Mr. Vice Mayor and members of the council, I might point out that the Vice Mayor often puts pressure on me at these quarterly updates to make the numbers look better, but I would like to point out that that's nothing compared to the pressure of making a presentation in front of my wife. And I'd like to introduce the council. The woman who looks like she's looking for terminal number 1 is actually my wife, Judy.
Welcome. Welcome. And Mr. O'Leary, I do not put undue. I only criticize you because with the good news you provide, I'd like a little more enthusiasm because we've been through some bad news before.
So, all right, I'll be enthusiastic.
Appropriately.
So the matter in front of the council this evening is the third quarter financial update, a look at the 16-17 budget performance through 3 quarters of the year. And I was just going to make a couple of brief comments on the information in front of you regarding 16-17, but I think what will be even more important for the council is to understand how this information begins to build the foundation for our preparation of the 17-18 budget that will be for you, that will be in front of you in just a matter of weeks. So in looking at March 31st, 2017, the revenues of the city, you can see, were at 65% after essentially 3 quarters of the year. But I would point out the council is well aware that the property tax, for instance, is essentially received by the city in 2 payments during the course of the year. The first is in December, and the second is in April. So we have not received or is not shown on this report the property tax, significant property tax that we receive in the second half of the year. So far this year, like I said, we are at 65%. We're projecting that sales tax is running just slightly ahead of budget. Property tax is running slightly ahead of budget, and the hotel motel, the TOT tax, is actually running a little bit behind. One of the hotels is closed, but there is general travel activity that in San Bruno has been at an extremely high level in the last couple of years, and the budget was based on continuation of that, and we have seen some fall off on that. So I will come back to the revenues, but essentially at the 3-quarter mark of the year, revenues are very, very close to the budget. On the expenditure side, and looking at 331, again, the expenditures for the general fund are at 70% of budget. Last year, at the same time, they were exactly at 70%. So I believe that obviously 75% would be the benchmark for March 31st, and so I think expenditures are running a little bit lower than budget, but again, nothing materially when looking at March 31st. So if I could switch over to, I mean, this is March 31st data. In preparation of the budget, we, in the last 6 or 8 weeks since this data, we have looked more directly and in particular expenditure levels, essentially position by position, based on vacancies, based on what the positions are, and just on, as a result of this more extensive review and really line by line looking at the budget, our estimate actually is that we are, back to revenues, we are going to be within $50,000. We're going to be $50,000 over the budget. So it's about 0.1%. We are going to be over budget. Again, looking at expenditures, looking in the weeks beyond March 31st, our estimate is that of the $42 million expenditure budget, we are going to be about at 97% at the end of the year. So we'll be less than $1 million, but we'll actually be between $500,000 and $1 million less than budget on the expenditure side. And again, that represents the council's ongoing direction for staff to look at vacancies, to look at each expenditure closely to determine the timing and if those need to go forward. So again, that magnitude of under expenditure over the course of this year is representative of what has happened in recent years. So I would say generally, again, 16, 17 overall activity is very close to what we've experienced in prior years.
To the chair.
Sorry, yes.
Question is just looking at parks at the 44%, which I know you said it's a little less on some. That's a significant less as far as the expenditures are concerned.
You're looking at the expenditure, or you're looking at the revenue? Which?
Right, the slide right now. Expenditures.
I actually don't have an answer for that, why it's so low. I will, that is, for most of them are between 66 and
well, that's what I was noticing. You said they were a little lower, and I appreciate that, but that is a significant difference opposed to the others. So
I would think even vacancies would not be that low. So I'll have to get.
I see the director is positioned to want to make a comment if she'd like, and she's welcome to.
Mr. Vice Mayor, members of the City Council, we have a relatively large appropriation in the Parks Maintenance budget for fire mitigation work that we typically start in the month of June, and so that may be a primary reason for the low expenditure, but we will spend that money in the month of June.
I actually have a more direct answer because I believe the 44% is a typo. And in looking at the report in the packet, the number is 67%. So it was an error.
We just spent money just like that before we knew it. So it should be 67% with the 44%.
67%.
And then what does that do to the overall total expenditure?
Well, 70
still accurate?
Yeah, 70% is, looking at the report in your packet, 70% is the correct number.
The figures are correct, it's just the percentage was wrong.
Yeah, it was a typo in that particular line.
Okay, so Ms. Burns, you don't have all that money to spend in June then, like you thought, so.
Just there is additional information in your packet related to the internal service funds and the enterprise accounts. Again, I would just say again, looking at 3 quarters, they are essentially at budget or between the 64 and or 68 and 76%. So I think again, there is nothing extraordinary in any of those funds through March 31st. The other part in the actual action item before you tonight is a budget amendment for the 3rd quarter. There are 8 items And these are, in this instance, each one of those eight items have come before the council in the past for action items. The council has approved these, and so this is a budget amendment that is entirely presenting actions that the council has already approved. With that, I'd answer any other questions the council has.
In essence, cleaning house here. In essence, just cleaning up the report. Okay, any questions?
Chair?
Councilmember Marty Medina.
I'm looking at page 1 of 2, page 90 in the packet, and just curious about the fire revenue being 177% of budget. Just wonder if you could shed a little bit of light on what that surplus is about.
The additional revenue, or essentially all the additional revenue over budget in the fire department, is a result of reimbursements the city receives for our overtime expenditures related to strike teams being sent for CAL FIRE. So there is, on the other side of the ledger, there is additional overtime spent in those instances beyond the budget, and this is the revenue reimbursement that we receive. We typically, not knowing what the season is going to be, we don't actually budget for that, so it is an excess amount. It's shown as additional revenue beyond the budget.
Anything else? Anything else? Okay.
Jim's wife's here. I'm going to be nice.
Okay.
Judy's here. I'm going to be nice tonight.
Generally, good news. Good projections, good forecasting. And with that, we need to approve the budget amendment. And so if there's a resolution.
I'll go ahead and introduce a resolution approving the amendment of the 216-217 operating and capital budget.
Roll call.
Councilmember Rico Medina.
Aye.
Councilmember Marty Medina.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Ibarra.
Aye. Thank you, Mr. O'Leary. Get back to the budget.